Good morning everyone, welcome to another vlog. So in today's vlog I want to address a question that somebody asked me over email yesterday. It's a very simple question. A lot of people have this question in their mind when it comes to the time to apply to business schools. The question is, how many schools should I apply to? What is a good number of schools to apply to? And how should I structure my entire application? Should I apply in round 1? Should I apply in round 2? That's another very common question. So let me try to answer that for you. A good number of schools, I think, is between 6 and 10. Fewer than 6, I think, is too few. More than 10, I think, is too many. So between 6 and 10, in fact 10 is actually a good number. Because then what you can do is, if you're applying to 10 schools, you can divide your schools across 3 categories. The 3 categories are, the first is your dream school. Schools where it's very difficult to get in, which have very low acceptance rates, like say a Harvard or a Stanford, but they're dream schools for you. So the first category can be your dream schools. The second can be what we call reach schools, where you are a good fit, but it will still be competitive because the acceptance rates are around 20-25% thereabouts. And then you can look at a few schools in what we call safe schools for you. So given your profile and given the acceptance rate of the school, you have a very high chance of getting through. One would be surprised if you did not get through to these schools. So you divide your schools in these 3 categories. So if you're applying to 10 schools, you can look at maybe 2 dream schools, 2 safe schools, and 6 reach schools. You can of course change that number a little, but don't add too many safe schools. I think 2 is a good enough number, because 1 or 2 safe schools is more than enough. Between dream and reach, it depends on how much you want to dream, honestly. But I think 2 or 3 is a good number for a dream school, assuming you're applying to 10. So you see the problem, if you apply to 6, you can only do maybe 1 dream and 1 safe and then 4 reach. So in case you want to increase your dream schools, apply to a few more, between 8 and 10 maybe. So that is how many schools to apply to and how to divide them. The second question is, which round do you apply in? Round 1 or round 2? Because there are a lot of counselors, consultants, articles online which recommend that you should apply in round 1 to have the highest probability of getting through. I don't think that's the case. I think that's absolutely incorrect. Through experience, through interaction with AdCom, first-hand interaction, I have got no reason to believe that there's any difference in the intake rate between round 1 and round 2. It's absolutely the same. I've seen enough students not make it through round 1 and enough get through round 2, and vice versa. So round 1 and round 2 I think makes no difference whichever round you apply in. Round 3 definitely makes a difference. Your chances go down. I'll discuss round 3 in a different video, and how you can use round 3 to your advantage. How we'll discuss in a different vlog. So between round 1 and round 2, you should actually have a smart strategy at work. What I mean to say is, don't apply to all the schools in round 1. One, it will be very, very difficult, to actually complete 8 or 10 applications. Given that most of you guys will be working, you won't have so much time. So it's not a good idea to do a shoddy job. So you must spend time on the application. It takes a little time. So apart from that, even if you have time, why not act smart and divide your schools across 2 rounds? So, and how do you do that? So let's say in my dream schools, I have a Harvard and a Stanford. So instead of applying to both in round 1, I'll let's say apply to Harvard in round 1 and keep Stanford for round 2. Because then in case in round 1, I get through to Harvard, I don't honestly have to apply to Stanford then, unless that was my preferred school. But you should apply to your preferred school early in any case. So if you get through to a Harvard in round 1, then you don't have to apply to Stanford in round 2. Also saves you the application fee and the effort of writing the entire application. In case you don't get into Harvard in round 1, then you can make some changes to your strategy for round 2. And you should do the same thing with schools in all your categories. So if you've got 5 schools in your reach category, apply to 2 or 3 in round 1 and keep 2 or 3 for round 2. Similarly, apply to 1 safe school in round 1 and keep the other for round 2. So now, based on your performance in round 1, whether you get interview calls, how many interview calls do you get, how do you perform in the interview if you get an interview call, Based on that, you can modify your strategy for round 2. So if you see that in round 1 you hardly got any interview calls, then there was some problem with your profile, with your essays, with your application. It makes sense to change it. In case you got a few interview calls, but you couldn't convert them, and you realized that in the interviews there was something you had mentioned in the essay that you were questioned on, and you couldn't handle those questions very well, then you may want to modify that in the essays that you use for your schools in round 2. Approach it in a very strategic manner. Depending on round 1, I'm making modifications to my application, my profile for round 2. So that's a good way of dividing your schools across the 2 rounds. I ideally apply to 4 or 5 in round 1, 4 or 5 in round 2. Now I'll give you a very interesting tip over here, which I haven't heard too many people speak about. I'm sure more counselors know about it. I mean, I've definitely used it and used it successfully, to get students into the desired schools. And that tip is, in round 1, apply to 1 or 2 schools, good schools. I don't mean like a very, very safe school. Good schools, but schools where you think you have a very high chance of getting through. You may not actually want to go to those schools. For example, a school such as Richard Ivy in Canada. It's a very good school, and it's not very difficult to get in. Even with a low GMAT, you can get through. Now, it's possible that you don't want to study in Canada. You don't want to go to Canada. That's okay. Apply to Ivy. A school such as IE in Spain. Again, not very difficult to get through. It's a good school, pretty high up in rankings. Apply there. You may not want to go to Europe. Doesn't make any difference. Apply there, get the offer, and then leverage that in round 2. So when you apply to your desired schools, say in the US maybe in round 2, tell them, I already have an offer from Richard Ivy. I already have an offer from IE, but I only want to come to you. This helps a lot in building credibility. See, look at things from the AdCom's point of view. When they take in a student, they have to justify their decision to a lot of people, to their fellow members on the AdCom, to the dean of the college, to a lot of people. If you are hired by a particular member of the AdCom and you perform very poorly in the college, that reflects poorly on this guy, the one who recommended that you be selected in that batch. So the AdCom is also human. They have their targets. You have to, they want to reduce their risks. And this helps them do that. Because then they feel, okay, this guy has already got an offer from a good school, so he must be a decent guy. Compared to somebody who has no offer, if I'm looking at somebody who has an offer, not from a Harvard or a Stanford, even a lower ranked school, which is absolutely fine. Don't go beyond 50, but anything in the top 50, get an offer from. I think it's very, very useful because you can leverage that to build credibility in higher ranked schools. You can leverage that to get good scholarships in slightly lower ranked schools, maybe even the higher ranked ones. So it just works a lot to your advantage. So don't be blind or don't be close to schools which may be in countries or regions where you don't want to go. Because you don't necessarily have to go to those schools, but you can use your admit in a very strategic manner, as I just explained to you. So use all these tips and strategies to maximize your chances of getting through to your desired business school. So I hope you found these tips useful. So now let's move from counseling to the GMAT and the OG 2017. Now I keep going through the OG on and off. There's one critical reasoning question I came across in the new OG, which I just couldn't actually make sense of. It was nothing like a critical reasoning question that I've seen in the past, official critical reasoning question. All the options looked incorrect to me. So I couldn't figure out which option should be the answer. Even by elimination, if one got to the answer, it was not the right way of getting there. So it's a very tough question. And since then, I've tried this question with a lot of my students, a lot of faculty members, people who I know in the industry. I haven't met a single person so far who's been able to get to the answer correctly and for the correct reason. I could eliminate down to the answer, though even that's very difficult in this case. But can you explain why the answer is the answer? So I'm going to show you the question now on your screen. You can pause the video once the question comes on the screen and take 2-3 minutes. Take as much time as you want actually. Try the question and then continue with the video, and I'll explain to you why the answer is what it is and why it is such a weird question. So here's the question on your screen now. You can pause the video and then come back and play it again. Okay, so I'm sure a lot of you found this question tricky or confusing, especially after the background that I gave you. Even an easy question would look difficult if I told you it was difficult. So, but this is definitely a difficult one, a tricky one. So the correct answer to this question is option A for alpha. That's the answer. And how is that the answer? Let's try to understand. In fact, it does make sense if you ask me. The conclusion of the argument is, at the end of all the purchasing and acquisition that's happening, Apex will eventually have 20 casinos, and Moneyland had 17. So Apex will still have more casinos or most casinos in the state. That's basically the conclusion. You have to weaken that. That won't be the case. So option A says that these three organizations are the only ones who can operate casinos in the state. And El Dorado is in any case being sold off. So the only two players left are Moneyland and Apex. Now see, the argument says Apex must sell 5 casinos. So who will it sell it to? I mean, the only buyer has to be Moneyland in that case. There's no other buyer because these are the only 3 players in the market. So when Moneyland purchases those 5 casinos, Moneyland will actually end up with 22 casinos. It already had 17. So 17 and 5 is 22, which is more than the 20 that Apex will end up with. So the conclusion that Apex will have the most casinos is incorrect. It will actually be, or gets weakened, it will actually be Moneyland that will have the most casinos. So the explanation makes perfect sense to me, but it is nothing like a GMAT question, a GMAT critical reasoning question that I've seen. It's a very tricky question. It just kind of, now if I get a question like this, I'll be aware of it. But it's the first time I've seen a question of this nature. But it's there in the OG, so you can bet on it that you will see something on these lines on the GMAT prep or on the actual GMAT. So I'll keep highlighting these interesting questions as and when I come across them. So I think that should be it for today's vlog. I shall see you guys tomorrow in a new vlog. Have a nice day.